over in the Tikva Chapel. On March 23rd, 1775, at the Second Virginia Convention in Richmond, Patrick Henry famously said, "I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death." There are lots of powerful quotations and texts that illustrate that same mentality as the foundation of this country's highest and most sacred principle. Liberty, freedom, is not just the bedrock of the United States of America, it is the philosophical ideal that shapes everything that this nation is and aspires to be. And so the die has been cast. And barring some kind of existential turning point, it will be that beacon, that guiding light of liberty that will continue to push America forward into the unknown journey that lies ahead. And that is what it is. I don't think there's any changing that. And I think for the great majority of Americans, there might be some caveats and some asterisks here and there, but there is general agreement that that light is true. That it is not without problems, but that it is indeed the identity of this country and should always be the identity of this country. And as a philosophy, it's hard to imagine a more virtuous or beautiful one for a country to take on as its essence. Freedom at its heart, after all, is about tolerance, about pluralism, about respect, about living in harmony with a great diversity of individual and communal identities. It was, after all, the audacious ideal goal of an oppressed religious minority. And it became the beautiful and achievable dream of people across the world who couldn't believe their eyes when that bold goal started to become a bold reality. As Jews in America, we have reaped the benefits of this philosophy in ways that we never could have imagined. We may have had to fight to keep that philosophy honest when we weren't allowed to attend certain universities, go to certain establishments, or even live in certain neighborhoods. But those days, for the most part, thank God, are behind us. But the great and important philosophy of liberty above all has also skewed our own philosophy, our own guiding beacon. And by our, I mean our Jewish philosophy, which is in fact a theology. Not political, not based on nationhood or geopolitics, but based on something else entirely. Through our time in America, we have adopted the philosophy of freedom and mistakenly read it into our texts, our prayers, our teachings, and our discourse. We have become Jews wearing freedom glasses, which, as they are meant to do, Americanize our understanding of our own faith and tradition. And I'm not making a judgment about that. That's simply a truth. I'm pointing it out because it's an observable fact. And perhaps the greatest example is how we understand the rite and ritual we'll be celebrating in just a few days. Because to American Jews, Passover has become the quintessential American Jewish holiday, the holiday of liberty, of freedom. In fact, there are HaGadol that take this idea and run with it to an incredible level, equating Moses and Aaron with George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, and Kos Eliyahu, Elijah's cup, with the Messianic age that is no dream, but that is here and now in the exceptionalism of the United States. But the problem with that equivalency is that it's a complete misreading of the Passover story. Pesach is an extraordinary holiday. It is one of the most meaningful, layered, and beautifully designed commemorations, not just in Judaism, not just in monotheism, but in all of human history. But it is not, and let me be clear here, it is not about freedom. at least not political freedom, not the American philosophy of freedom. Which is easy to miss because America has, for its own purposes and for the sake of a Christian majority, emphasized that the great declaration of Moses, the great demand of Moshe Rabbeinu is, "Let my people go." But that's not the full quote. And it's not the full context. Because in reality, it's not Moshe that is demanding this freeing of the Israelite slaves. It's God. And God's message is not to let God's people go free. It is to let my people go from Egypt so that they may go and serve me. The Exodus is not about freedom from servitude. It is about freedom from serving men, human beings, political figures, and despots, and returning the Israelite loyalty to serving God. We celebrate Yetziat Mitzrayim, the Exodus from Egypt, not just on Passover, by the way, but daily in our liturgy, in Kiddush, on Shabbat, not because Yetziat Mitzrayim freed us to live how we want, where we want, and with amendments granting us free speech, assembly, or press. We celebrate Yetziat Mitzrayim because it freed us from human slavery and allowed us to receive Torah. Allowed us to receive Torah and to dedicate ourselves to Torah, to its laws, its obligations, and its ethics. And that's important. That's important. That's important not just for our understanding of Magid, for our understanding of the Pesach story. It's important because it invariably puts us in a position of tension, of counter-ideology to whatever nation in which we live. Even the United States, and even, by the way, a secular and democratic Israel. Because the service of God, the dedication to Torah, does not place individual liberty as the paragon of our national identity. The guiding light of Torah is peace, goodness, and love above everything else. Our Torah teaches and our rabbis reiterate and our commentators codify the words we'll read in just a few weeks. Ve'ahavta l're'echa kamocha, ze klal gadol b'Torah. Love your neighbor as yourself. This is the foundational principle of Torah. The rest, as Hillel the elder taught, is commentary. And just to be clear, what makes this so extraordinary is that it's not meant to be a mantra or a passive meditation to carry with us to work on our own sense of peace or enlightenment. Our commandment to love is just that, a commandment to actively create love in the world, which means that it is our duty day in and day out to give love, to provide tzedakah, to help others live with food and water and clothes, but also to help all people live with dignity, with worth and value, and to do everything in our power to put together a broken world so that one day we will beat our swords into plowshares and our spears into pruning hooks. That is our obligation. But until that day comes, the Gemara tells us in Pirkei Avot, we are not obligated to finish the work, but neither are we allowed to desist from it. And that means that being Jewish means first and foremost serving God. And serving God means creating goodness and building a better world, an obligation. And that obligation trumps everything else. It trumps different ideologies. It trumps other identities. It trumps what we think we as individuals are entitled to through the promises of other entities. So what that means, just to be clear, is that Patrick Henry said, "Give me liberty or give me death." And that has become the paragon of what it means to be American. In our country today, liberty remains that paragon. So much so that the words could also say, "Give me liberty, even if it engenders, aids, or perpetuates death." In Judaism, the philosophy is different. In Judaism, our guiding light is, give me liberty so that I may serve God, so that I may do anything and everything in my power to prevent death, especially senseless death, needless death, hateful death, preventable death. One of the great freedoms in America is that we don't have to be American Jews. That is, first and foremost, Jews who happen to live in America. We can be Jewish Americans. Our national identity can come first. That's a freedom that we have here. We also have the freedom to not be religiously Jewish at all, to worship however, whomever, or whatever we want, or worship nothing. But if we make the decisions to be American Jews, to hold first and foremost to our Jewish identity, then we need to understand that sometimes our philosophy, our theology, our guiding principle is going to conflict with the one that guides this country. Because as we're going to read in just a few nights, freedom to us is not allowed to come at the expense, the safety, or the life of anyone else. Not of people with different backgrounds or skin colors, gender identities or sexual orientations, and certainly not at the expense of 9-year-olds in their classrooms. That is anathema. That is a profanation of what our freedom means. Give me liberty, but not at the expense of kindness. Give me liberty, but not at the expense of caring for the vulnerable around us. Give me liberty, but never, never if it facilitates death. Passover is almost here. It's one of the greatest gifts ever given to the world. An annual reminder of dedication, of gratitude, of recommitment to our history, our tradition, and our ideals. It's not about freedom, at least not the kind of freedom that we're used to here. It's about the freedom to be who we are, the freedom to be who we were meant to be. And that freedom isn't a political ideal. It's not a national philosophy. It's a moral mandate. It's Torah. And it's priceless. It's holy. It's holy. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Chag Sameach.